So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me. I saw the show on the 7th and absolutely loved it, and so I'm super excited to chat a little bit about this production. And so jumping right into it, what is it like bringing a Jason Robert Brown show that's not often performed here in Chicago to the stage at the Oil Lamp?
Um, I think Jason Robert Brown, his music is so identifiable. Like it really is so complex. And when you're auditioning for a Jason Robert Brown show, you have to go in with music that shows you can handle the complexity of it. And so bringing it to the oil lamp is really fun because it's such an intimate space, and the show was originally done at the North Lake Theater 25 years ago. So being able to bring it back to such an intimate space, it kind of lets the audience enjoy all the different parts of it. Like there's parts where we sing over each other and the melodies work wonderfully together. And then there's parts where the music changes so quick. Um, and it's really fun to surprise the audience with that because they're right up in front of us.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think it's such a, I mean, as a piece independent from, as a piece just by itself, and also, in terms of the context of what it meant for Jason Robert Brown, like it's just such a personal piece. And I think that like it's the story of a 5-year relationship, and everyone has relationships. And so it's just an incredibly touching piece to be a part of, and also to be an audience member for. And like Lily mentioned that it was initially done at Northlight Theater. And interestingly, some of the people who have come to the show have said things along the lines of like, I saw it when I was back at Northlight 25 years ago. And like, and so it's just funny that we sort of, it actually does feel important to sort of like honor the Chicago legacy of the show. But it's such a special piece to be a part of and get to work on.
If sure, and with this being such an intimate venue, it also offers a different experience for sure. And so, like, what are some of the good things and some of the hardships that you guys have found throughout performing in such an intimate venue?
Well, I think that the best part about it is that you are just like right there with the audience, and they're right there with you, and so it feels like there's no. Sometimes I think you can give yourself the illusion when you're on stage in a very big proscenium theater and there are people far away that you have some sort of like veil that you can hide behind, especially when you put on these layers of like costume and makeup, sometimes a wig. Like it can feel like you're sort of like stepping into a TV almost, and there's some separation, and like you can't try to convince yourself of that at Oil Lamp in a 60-seat theater. And like we're also like singing in the aisles and like interacting with the audience at different moments in the show, and honestly like it's I think like really to the benefit of the story that's the format and the structure. The challenge for me was that we made the decision not to use microphones for the show, which I actually think adds to the feeling of intimacy and the feeling of like no separation, because there's never going to be a moment when I'm singing over here and the sound's like coming from behind you on the other side of the theater. Like there's no disconnect at all. But as much as there are these like big loud moments of the show or everything's going right or everything's going wrong and you just want to like pour your heart out, there are like intimate moments, especially in the song Between the Two of Us. And so sometimes you just want to like talk at this volume, or you just sort of like want to kind of like honor the intimacy of the moment with
Yeah.
the volume of your voice, and you can't do that because then nobody could hear you. And that's something that our director Christina Ramirez worked with us to make sure that we were projecting our moments out to the back of the house with no microphones.
Yeah, pretty much all of the same. I mean, I think one of the fun challenges with this show specifically is it is so wordy. Like I have like an inner monologue section, and like Abraham said, like we don't have microphones. So keeping that feeling like it's in a real place, like making it feel truthful without making it feel like you're sacrificing truth for volume is really important. And that's something we talked about. Like I think Christina said something during rehearsal. She was like, your projection does not negate the truthfulness of what you're saying. Like, you can be saying this, Kathy can be having these thoughts, Kathy needs to have them at this volume and at this diction because people need to understand what she's saying. And when she said that, we were both like, oh, that was that was real good. But yeah, I mean, there's benefits and drawbacks to every space you're in. I think something that is fun with this show that I guess could be a challenge, I think of it more as benefit, is we can hear audience reactions very clearly. Um, so there was at one point, the end of the show, I cross over and find the note that Jamie leaves. And in the song before that, it's the finale. He's singing goodbye to Kathy. Kathy's talking about their first date, and he's writing the note. And some woman very loudly went, oh, he's writing the note. He's doing it. Because at the beginning of the show, I discover the note. And so I think in a larger space, you don't have those. So it is a benefit and drawback of like, oh, it's really fun to hear the audience reaction, but you also do have to like dial in a lot more of like, I have to completely ignore what's going on right now. And that's always a fun challenge.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
there are. I was just gonna say, like, especially when couples come to the show together, they
Oh,
sometimes
yeah.
like to make sure that their spouse has heard the joke. So, like, there's a song "Shik's a Goddess" where the premise of the song is like Jamie's just met this girl and she's not Jewish, and he just loves how much she's not Jewish because he's Jewish and has only dated Jewish girls before. And like towards the end of this like 3.5 minute song, I heard like this woman turn to her husband and say like Shik's a goddess. Like just to make sure that he had, gotten the joke. It's delightful.
Yeah, for sure. And so throughout the show, each of your guys' journeys go either backwards or forward on the timeline. And so with this show specifically, is there a specific moment throughout the timeline that you guys look forward to performing each night?
Oh.
I love the song "The Next 10 Minutes," which is a little bit of a cheat because that's when the timelines intersect.
Yeah.
But like having a scene partner, especially because so much of the show is us imagining how Kathy would be reacting to what Jamie is saying, and like being really specific about like the imaginative reactions, imagined reactions. So it's so much fun to like get to do that song, like especially doing it with Lili, and like we start in one place literally on the stage and we end up in another, and so I think that's definitely a moment that I really look forward to. But I'm actually really curious, Lili, what you'll say to this, because I go chronologically through the show. So like I start at
Yeah.
the first date or right after the first date, and I end writing the letter saying, spoilers, saying goodbye and saying, I'm sorry this relationship didn't work. So I really sort of like look forward to just like going on the whole journey. But yes, the next 10 minutes. That's my answer.
Yeah, it is very different because I travel backwards and it's like we talked about this last night. Like I have all of my emotional baggage right at the start of the show.
Yeah.
Like I'm not sobbing, but I'm upset because I found the wedding ring in a note, and then the next one is like the big blowout fight, like right, like when he comes to Ohio. And I enjoy both of those moments, but honestly, I think my favorite moment is just I Can Do Better Than That because that's a song that I first learned when I was like 14 and learning how to belt in voice lessons. And so I remember thinking back then, like, oh, I would love to be able to like sing this at one point. Like, not even thinking at that point that I would become an actor. Like it was just like this would be fun to sing. And now I get to sing that every day and like
Yeah.
do it as a job. And I think that one is just really fun. Um, it's also really fun because it's sandwiched in between two of Jamie's like emotional
Yeah.
baggage songs. So it's a nice little reprieve for the audience. But I think personally that selfishly, that one's my favorite just because little 14-year-old Lily really enjoys it.
Yeah, for sure. And so, what was the audition process like for each of you guys for this show?
I have a sort of funny audition. It was a little eventful for me. There were three phases. The first phase was you had to send in your headshot and resume. And then if they reached out to you, then you would do the second phase, which was an audition. And then if you got past the audition, the third phase was a callback. So for the first phase, they said, please don't submit for this if you are not available for the callback. Well, I was out of town for the callback, but I reached out to them and I said, I'm really sorry. Like, I'm actually, I want to be upfront. I do have a conflict for the callback, but I would love to be considered for this show. So here's my headshot and resume. And they said, okay, like, why don't you just audition and we'll see what happens. For the audition, through a random series of events, I was staying at a friend's house for the weekend. And so I didn't have my audition materials. So I said, and he was going to drive me to the audition. And I said, can we just leave early enough so I can go to the library and print my resume and my song and then go to CVS so I can print my headshot? And he said, okay. So we went to the library. It was closed. We went to another library and we printed my resume and my song. We were like, okay, like it's going to be tight, but like we'll be able to get there. So we went to CVS and the printers were down. And I was like, and so the people who were working there were like, we think we can maybe get it working. Like, just give us a few minutes. And I was like, totally. Like, I am in a little bit of a rush, so no worries if it doesn't work. But like, if you could just tell me now if you think it won't work, that would be great. And they were like, okay, yeah, it's not good. I mean, like, we're not going to be able to fix it. And I was like, okay, thanks. So I got in the car. My friend put on some techno music and floored it. I mean, we were flying through the streets of the Chicago suburbs, just like with in the background. And I made it to the audition 1 minute early without my headshot. But they were so nice. They were like, oh, it's okay. Like, we don't judge. We don't judge at all. And then for the callback, they like arranged a separate time for me to come in. And I ended up coming in at like 8 p.m. the night before I had a 6 a.m. flight out of Chicago.
Wow.
And like the director and the music director and the artistic director all came in late at night for this like little like solo callback. And so that was how my audition process went. And then I think I heard, the next week or something like that.
That's like a whole journey. Like,
Yeah. Oh, and my friend takes absolute full credit for for me getting the job. 100%.
I My audition process was not that crazy. Um, it was pretty low key. Honestly, I submitted my headshot and resume, and they were like, "Great, come in for the first round." And there is an amazing accompanist in the Chicago area called Jeff Poindexter. And Abraham and I have talked about this. Everyone who's worked with Jeff knows Jeff is amazing. And there have been cases, this case included, where I came in with a song I wanted to sing because it was emotionally a really good piece, but also vocally it was really challenging. I wanted to show that. But it's a really hard piece to play. And I remember I walked in and I was like, if Jeff is playing piano, I will sing this. If not, I have a plan B. And they were like, Jeff's here. I was like, amazing. So I walked in, Jeff played it. I think it like went well. Obviously, I got a call back, and then I went for the callback, and it was really nice. I was there. I had a bunch of my friends I hadn't seen that were in my callback group. I sang my second song. I saw Amy, our music director, kind of go, just nodded, and I was like, okay, that was great. Um, yeah, it was pretty chill. There was no techno music in my version. But
Shame.
it worked out. I know. I should have added that in. I will next time.
Next
yeah, for
time.
sure. And so, with this show, and this show is only a two-person show, and most of the show you guys are on individually. And so, do you guys find that as a challenge, or do you guys find ways to help that in your performance of being the only person on stage for 50% of the show?
I think it's a blessing and a curse, which is like the typical cop-out answer, but it is very much like we really got a lot of time to like work with Christina one-on-one, which is amazing. And even in processes with two-person shows, like sometimes you're crunched for time and you know you're gonna work with somebody. But this was like, oh, we got to talk through every song and like work through things and really like picture how things are gonna be on stage and try new things that didn't work. But then it was also we did have points where like for I can do better than that, where like we had it or like Abraham, they were like, can you just sit next to Lily so we can practice or like being in a car and talking to the driver. And he like responded and we like went through the song. So it's like we did have phases of working with each other, I think more so with the Kathy songs. Um, but yeah, I think It's hard because you don't want to think of the show as a soliloquy. It's a conversation. And I think sometimes when you're in rehearsals by yourself, that's easy to forget. So it was great that Christina, our director, kept reminding us of like, you need to keep Jamie, like, tell him what you're thinking. Or with Kathy, it's like, no, like, she needs to listen. And we just had a lot of conversations with the other characters of like what their intentions are, even if we weren't there.
Yeah, I mean, I think I totally agree with everything you just said. Like, I think that the audience has to do a certain amount of work to puzzle these two people together and like understand the relationship because they're not actually seeing the two characters together like you would in most musicals. So it's like it's actually so important that we kind of like enliven the scene partner. For example, like the song "If I Didn't Believe in You," which for people who don't know, it's like a song in the second half of their marriage as kind of as sort of the weight of Jamie's success is kind of like and his like and then therefore his subsequent absence from the relationship is kind of weighing on the two of them, and he's late for a party that's celebrating the publishing of his new book, and so this sort of this argument that they're having. And it starts with Jamie just saying like, "Can I have 2 minutes to just say what I'm feeling, and then you can talk." And then he talks for like 4 minutes or something. And when you look at it that way, when you look at it as like just Jamie like kind of like saying his piece, it feels very different from if you look at it from the perspective of like this is actually the whole time it's a conversation and like Kathy is reacting and Jamie's like waiting for her to say something and trying to get her to say something, and like the whole time it is a conversation, and like he's really they're both fighting for themselves and for the relationship the whole time. And so but if it really just feels like Jamie's like standing on a pedestal, or like in other songs like Kathy's just standing on a pedestal and like saying here's everything that I have to say, then like it has a very a different energy. So yes, I think that it's been super helpful to like get to know each other and like get to know like Lily and like her version of Kathy, and like really imagine like how she would be reacting if like my version of Jamie were saying certain things. Um, but yeah, it was definitely a challenge, but Christina and Lily made it all wonderful.
For sure. And so, with this show, what are some things that you hope that audiences or couples take away from this production?
Oh, that's a good question. I I hope that people leave with the idea that even if there's something my mom used to say to me and my sister when we were younger. It was like after we had our like first breakup, and you're like, oh my God, the world's ending because you're like 17 and you're like, the world is everything's over. I'm never gonna find love. And I remember she was like, you are just one broken heart closer to your happily ever after. And I think that's what I want people to take away from it. Like, even if this person is not going to be in your life in 5 years or 10 years, they are in your life for a reason. Kathy and Jamie crossed paths for a reason. They didn't, I personally believe the universe has ways of doing things that, like, you learn lessons from everything. And I think it's just important to remember, like, those lessons might not be fun to learn. They might be really painful and they might suck when it's happening, but every person you cross paths with romantically or in your life is meant to help you get through something or learn something. And so even though this journey isn't necessarily the easiest for both characters, I think it's like, well, for Jamie to meet his endgame person and for Kathy to meet her endgame person, they had to go through this together. And I think this show can kind of make people leave me like, oh my God, I never want to date again. Like love, I don't want to be in love. Like love is horrible and love can be horrible, but I think I just want people to know that like, yes, you can go through rough patches, but you have to go through those rough patches to eventually find what you're meant to do and who you're meant to be with. And I think that's what I want people to take from the show.
Yeah. I don't know if I have a specific takeaway. I don't know if I feel like the show like has a thesis statement exactly. I think that I hope that people see themselves in some part of the show, and I imagine that most people do, because of just it's an expansive it's expansive in the scope of the relationship that it covers, and I think I kind of just want people or I hope people feel invited to like analyze the relationship and talk about it because in preparation for the show, I've been reading this book called The State of Affairs by Esther Perel, and it's like a book about infidelity. And one of the things she talks about is like across all cultures, across all periods of time, like infidelity has always been one of simultaneously like one of the most painful things that someone can go through and also one of the most common things and like one of the most consistent things across cultures and across time. And so and the show is not just about infidelity, it's about a million things, but it's like that's just an example of like something a piece that the show like talks about that is like kind of like under discussed and like under kind of like prepared for in relationships. And so I just like I hope that the show inspires people to sort of think about how there are really two sides to every story and like you know just kind of like where they see themselves and what they want from their relationships and what they don't want from their relationships and like how they might avoid being in a relationship like this at times. I just kind of like hope that it just like encourages people to just think about their relationships and their desires.
Yeah, for sure. And so that actually wraps up the interview today. I'd like to thank both of you for joining. And you guys now running through July 19th. So that's at the Oil Lamp Theater. So make sure to get your tickets. And yeah, thank you guys so much for joining me.
Thanks so much for having us.
For
It's a
having me.
pleasure.